Okay, so welcome everyone to our Phoenix event. Today we're going to be talking about expedition medicine, kind of getting your foot in the door. It's how to kick off your career in expedition medicine, because I think a lot of people find that to be the most difficult step, even more so now with COVID. So our speaker today is Lydia Potter, a final year medical student, hoping to specialise in emergency medicine, and is working towards incorporating a career in pre-hospital medicine and expedition medicine. Her talk today will cover her experiences as a junior with these interests, the opportunities she's been lucky enough to gain in this field, and the challenges students can face while trying to gain experience in the world of expedition medicine. Running expedition medicine has unlimited potential for all medical professionals at all stages in their careers, from diving to deserts to jungles to mountains. Really, the world is your oyster with these. And yeah, sometimes the challenge is just getting your foot in the door. So we really hope you enjoy this event and find it useful. I'll hand over to our amazing speaker, Lydia. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much, Nathan. That was a really kind introduction. I'm really excited to be talking to all you guys today. And I just want to say big thanks to phoenixmeded. Hopefully, if you guys are on this talk, you're aware of what phoenixmeded do. But essentially, they're a collaborative network between University of Cardiff, Zambia, and Namibia, and they do various different talks. So I was really, really flattered to be asked to give this talk. So as Nathan said, my name's Lydia. I'm a fifth year medical student at Cardiff University, and I'm really interested in expedition medicine. So I've been trying to sort of tailor my medical school career a bit and do some bits and bobs in my spare time. And I just thought I'd share with you guys some challenges that I've sort of get experience in expedition medicine, and some tips and tricks for how to use. So I do have the chat bar open, so if you have any questions or anything, just pop it in the chat. So I just want to cover a bit how to gain experience when you're a student or a junior, and a bit about my experiences. And I know PowerPoints can really be boring, and I really don't want this to be death by PowerPoint. So recently graduated from my fifth year of Cardiff, and I'm moving up to North Wales for my first job. So this is the castle in Conwy in North Wales. So I'll just introduce myself again. So I, like I said, I'm graduating and becoming a F1 doctor. So for anyone not from the UK, F1 is just the first year of postgraduate training as a doctor. So like I said, I'm moving up to North Wales to a hospital called Ysbyty Gwynedd, which for anyone who's not been in Wales probably just looks like a jumble of letters, but that's a hospital in Bangor. And I lived in Australia, to England when I was 11, and then moved to Wales when I was 18 to start studying medicine. So possibly not international, but that's my question. And I don't want it to be too deep for a Sunday morning, but what makes you happy? So this was the sort of thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about where I wanted my career to sort of lead me and where I wanted to be in life. So in terms of medical specialties, what made me happy and what I enjoyed in medicine was always acute medicine. So I really, really enjoyed the work I did in emergency department on my placement blocks. And I was also lucky enough to get some experience with the ambulance service in Wales, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But I absolutely loved the work I did pre-hospitally and in A&E in the emergency department. I had so much fun, and it made me think I really want to do that as a career. But medicine's not everything, and we all have our lives outside of medicine. So then I was thinking about, well, what else makes me happy? What else do I want to fill my time with? So I really love skiing and I really love bouldering and climbing. I like hiking and being in the mountains. I love swimming and going on camping trips, and I've done a bit of scuba diving. I love traveling and just in general being outdoors. So I had all these interests and all these things that I loved doing, but then I also knew I wanted to have my career in medicine. So I just sort of started thinking, how can I incorporate all these interests and make sure that I, manage to get both in my life. And I'm aware that all of these photographs makes it look like I do exciting things all the time. So I just want to make a note of saying that I actually spend most of my time losing my car keys, eating a lot of chocolate, and crying at really sad films. So it's not all excitement, as we all know while we're at medical school. So back to sort of the things that I enjoy. So I started thinking, can I do both? Does it have to be work and then hobbies? Is there any way of incorporating these, or just incorporating medicine in general with being outside and doing all these things that I enjoy? And I was lucky that I was introduced to the concept of wilderness and expedition medicine quite early at medical school in my first year. But for anyone who's not aware of, what this subspecialty is, I'll just give you a bit of a definition. So I've taken this definition from the Oxford Handbook of Expedition and Wilderness Medicine, which is a really great little book that is essentially the Bible of the specialty. So they have defined it as a discipline concerned with maintaining physical and psychological health under the stresses and challenges of expeditions to remote and challenging places. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but we all know in medicine we like a definition. So that's what the handbook's gone for. But then what's an expedition? So an expedition is an organised journey with a purpose, which probably incorporates lots of different things. A lot of things can be described as a journey with a purpose. So I've put a few examples at the bottom. So you might be going on a journey and your purpose might be educational. So you might be a scientist going on an expedition to record some new data or carry out a research project. It might be because of tourism. So you want to go and see part of the world, you want to go and experience something. Or even competitive. So people go and do ultra marathons in different places. They want to do long distance hikes and push themselves. And sometimes, they do that for charity as well. But there's much, much more to it. And I think expedition is quite a loose term. I've always loved, maybe not necessarily anything that could class as an expedition, but exploring and going and experiencing new things. So I put up a little picture of all my bags at the train station when I went on a trip to Belgium to cover an ultramarathon, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So the thing I really love about the idea of expedition medicine is that it can just take you absolutely anywhere in the world. So we've got all these different environments on our amazing planet. So we've got polar and mountains, jungles, marine environment, deserts. It's so varied, isn't it? I've tried to use as many of my own photos as possible. So in the left, I've got a photograph from Belgium when I went there to cover an ultramarathon. And then on the right at the top, that's a jungle in Laos in Southeast Asia. The lovely photo underwater I did not take, but that was taken by someone else on a trip to the Red Sea in Egypt. And the desert there is from some sand dunes in Vietnam. So I've talked a little bit about myself, but I haven't done that much exciting stuff because I'm only a junior. So I just want to talk about some absolutely awesome people, just to give you guys an idea of really where this can take you. So there are two people on this slide, and I'm hoping that you already recognise one of them. So the other lady is Dr. Lucia Blensky. She's an emergency medicine doctor who also works in general practice. So she's a bit of a generalist, but she's been on 20 expeditions or more, and she's done quite a lot of work with TV. So she's been the doctor covering David Attenborough's recent programmes. So she's been covering the medical care for Planet Earth and Blue Planet 2. So she's been all over the world getting to look after the crews that are doing this, which I just think is absolutely amazing. Like, these programs were brought out to just show us how amazing the planet is. And she's gone and seen all these things whilst practicing medicine. And she's also done some work for NGOs, so non-governmental organisations that sort of do charity work abroad. And she has a bit of an interest in global health as well. So when I heard about people like Lucy, I was just thinking like, oh my gosh, how can I do this? This sounds so cool. This is another doctor. So this is Professor Chris Imray, who I was really lucky to meet. He is absolutely awesome. So he's a vascular surgeon, and he's a really, really experienced mountaineer. And his sort of specialty is he's the world leading expert on frostbite and cold injury. He's really interested in high altitude. And he decided that he wanted to go and do all these, these trips and expeditions and go mountaineering all around the world, but he wanted to do a bit of medicine as well. So he decided to do lots of research. So he took a bunch of researchers all the way to the top of Everest, and they did some absolutely mad research studies. They were doing, arterial blood gases at like 8,000 meters. It was absolutely crazy. And they published all these papers and really found out about the physiology that happens when we take our body to these extreme environments. And that little Bible, the Oxford Handbook of Expedition and Wilderness Medicine, he's actually written part of that. So he's really, really important guy in high altitude medicine. And I just wanted to make a point to say, it's not all doctors. I don't know whether we've got all medical students on this chat, or whether there are some other students as well. So I just wanted to put in a paramedic as well. So this is Owen Walker, who I've met once. And he again does some work with NGOs, and he does a load of expeditions. The bottom photograph is from an expedition in Fiji, where he was covering some filming for a sort of ultra marathon and multi-sport event. And he also does a lot in expedition medical education. So he works a lot with a company running courses so that people can learn how to practice medicine in these environments. But all of these people are from the UK. And I know that this group is an international group. So when I was trying to make this PowerPoint, I was thinking, what else is happening in other countries? And I really wanted to get up a bio of a doctor from, or a medical professional from Namibia or Zambia. But I did have a Google and I couldn't find much. And then I was thinking, well, is that because I can't find it, or is that because there's nothing out there? So I thought I'd do a bit of research and have a look so I can make it a bit more relevant for you guys who aren't from the UK. So this is what I found. There's a big growing increase in people wanting to do ultra marathons and sports events in countries all over the world. And when I typed in sort of, Namibia, Zambia, expedition medicine, almost the top thing that came up was all of these ultra marathons and sports events from these crazy people who want to run really long distances in places they've never been before. So there's big desert marathons that happen in Namibia. And all of these events need medics to cover them in case the runners, become unwell. And a lot of the time, these runners are paying quite a lot of money to go, and part of their money goes towards making sure they're safe. So that's something for sure that's happening in your countries. As you guys know, there's a lot of tourism that occurs. It's dipped during COVID, but from the emergence of COVID, people are going to get going again. I'm sure everyone from Zambia and probably everyone else can recognise Victoria Falls in the corner, which we know attracts an absolute shed load of tourists. And where people go, medicine needs to follow, really, especially in the society we're living in. There is an increasing need for expedition medics as people do spread across the world, and people are expecting to be looked after when they're travelling. I also found that a company called World Extreme Medicine, who are a leading company that provide a lot of medical education, and they train people to be able to provide medicine in these environments. And that's who Owen Walker, the paramedic, works for. So they carry out their desert medicine teaching course in Namibia, in the desert there. And a lot of the time, I'm interested in expedition medicine, so I can go internationally and go and do all these cool things. So even if there aren't loads of opportunities in your own country, once you're working or you have the funds, you can look to be going abroad as well. So I'm going to talk a bit about how I started out with my interest in expedition medicine. I just want to put a disclaimer that this open fracture is fake. I was practicing this talk with my boyfriend, and at the end I said, is there anything that I should say? And he said, make sure you tell people that it's fake. So that is a synthetic sticker, just so you're all aware. So starting out, I came to medical school and I was made aware of this university society called Cardiff WEMS, and that was Cardiff Wilderness and Expedition Medicine Society. So this was a group of students who got together and would do events around the topic. So they would go out and do these lovely walks and other outdoorsy stuff, and they would also do some simulation and teaching about what happens if people become unwell in these extreme environments when they're not in a hospital. So the top picture is the beautiful Brecon Beacons in Wales, which is our nearest national park to Cardiff. And that was a trip I went on in my first year. And then at the bottom, we've got some simulation that we've done. And we're lucky that we've got quite a lot of kit, but I think, you know, simulation will work with whatever kit you have. And it is good fun to train and try and think about what you will do if people become poorly in more extreme environments. So throughout this talk, I'm going to have a little yellow box at the bottom of each screen where I'm going to put some tips for you guys, because I really wanted this talk to be something that I would have found useful if it was being given to me, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. And what I would have found useful is if someone gave me some tips on how I can get the experience I want to get. So the yellow box is going to have tips for you guys. So number 1 tip, join your university's Wilderness Medicine Society. If it doesn't have one, just make your own. I know it's a lot of effort, but if you're really interested, it's an absolutely fantastic way to improve your learning and befriend like-minded people. You know, even if you're not making a society, are there people who want to get out exploring? They want to go walking, they're interested in simulation, you know, you can learn from each other. You know, medical students are very smart and you can learn a lot from each other. You know, a lot of the time what I've learned has been from my friends rather than doctors on placement. So after my first couple of years of being part of Cardiff WEMS, this was how I was feeling. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And I really think this is, you know, where I want to go in my career, because it just seems absolutely awesome to be able to get outside. And this was on a trip to the Lake District in England that we did at the end of first year with the Wilderness Medicine Society. So I was really, really lucky in the summer of my second year to go and do a bit of traveling. I know this isn't something that's available to everyone, but I'd saved a bit of money and I had the most amazing time. I spent 2 months in Southeast Asia and I just had a great time experiencing lots of new things. I went to Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam and Laos, and those are the 4 pictures up. And I also did my open water scuba diving course. So there's a photo of me looking rather nervous, one of my first times underwater in my scuba kit. And that was something that I've kept up because I just loved it so much. So my tips would be travel and explore where possible and try and push yourselves to try new things, because I was quite nervous to go. But I just had an amazing time and it made me realise I really just want to get out and experience all these new countries and cultures. But I just want to make a point of saying you do not need to go really far away and spend loads of money to have an adventure. This photo is taken at Symonds Yat, which is about an hour from Cardiff. And as you can see, it's absolutely beautiful. And I've had loads of adventures in the UK, particularly over COVID when we've not been able to get abroad. It's made me realise how beautiful our own country is. So you absolutely don't need to spend loads of money to go and have an adventure. So as I sort of progressed into my 3rd and 4th year, I did more and more work with the Wilderness Medicine Society. So I joined the society committee, which meant that I could take a bit more autonomy with organising the events and try to tailor it a bit to what I wanted to do. So I started planning my own trips and organising my own speakers. And that was really cool because, you know, I would think, you know what, I really want to hear from someone who's an expert on mountain medicine. So I would get on my computer, email someone and say, do you want to come to Cardiff and give a talk? And a lot of the time people were really keen to. So the bottom picture on the right, that's Chris Imray, the mountaineer I was telling you all about earlier, who went and did this research on Everest. So I got in touch with him and I said, do you want to come to Cardiff and give us a talk? And he did. So it was fab to meet him and it was awesome to hear the sort of things he wanted to say. So that's me introducing him when he came to Cardiff to talk about his 7 Summits challenge. And I also started running some of my own simulations. So I think simulation is an amazing way to learn. So these top 2 pictures were from when me and a friend decided to run a weekend doing some outdoor simulation of, you know, a pre-hospital or extreme environment simulation, you know, what happens if people do become really unwell. And some of the simulations, I would write them myself and it was good learning. And other simulations, other people would write for me so that I could be a part of it. So the picture on the left of my friend Becca looking quite poorly with a wound on her head, that was a simulation that I wrote about a girl who fell off a horse. And I got some of the other students to run through what they would do. And the photograph on the right is me and some friends looking a bit too happy resuscitating someone under a storm shelter. So we learned quite a lot from these. So I'd really recommend doing some simulation. And I just kept sort of exploring in the Brecon Beacons, going for nice walks. So you can see one of the waterfalls up in Brecon Beacons there. I think as you become a bit of an older medical student, it's really great to gain teaching experience. And even though you're not an expert, you can try and do some teaching to younger students. So I did a bit of that with the Wilderness Medicine Society, and that was really useful and good for my CV too. I know this isn't relevant for everyone because we've got people from various countries, but I just want to talk quickly about what's available in the UK for the Wilderness Medicine Societies. So there's quite a lovely network of societies in the UK from all the different universities, and they do quite a lot of collaborative events, which are really good to be made aware of. So there are two big events that happen in the UK. One of them is called Wild Trials, which is this photograph of a large group of people. And it's basically a wilderness medicine competition. So you take part in simulations and you do a bit of navigation and you gain points, and it's a bit of a competition, but it's all really fun. And it's just a weekend of spending time with like-minded people, practicing a bit of medicine outdoors, doing a bit of navigation. It's really good fun. And a different university hosts it each year. And the other thing that happens is a student wilderness medicine conference, which again is a 2-day weekend where we're camping. You can see the group from Cardiff in the top photo at last year's conference. And we get some awesome speakers come in, like top of their field speakers. Some from various countries fly in to talk at it, and they do some lectures, some tutorials, some practicals. And I've met some incredible people at the conferences. So if you're from the UK, if you can, get to the Student Wilderness Medicine Conference. You will not regret it. It's an amazing weekend. And the other thing that I wanted to point out is that there is a Facebook page called Student Wilderness Medicine UK. And if you go on it, and I'd actually think I'd recommend it for anyone from any country, they advertise like talks, opportunities, lectures, you know, things like this talk, but from people who are much more senior than me. It's a really great way to be aware of sort of what's going on and what courses and talks are available. So if you're interested, join that Facebook group. So the other thing I wanted to do through my time at uni to sort of help with my career was I really wanted to improve my outdoor skills, because a very wise expedition medic once told me there's no point in being good at medicine and going to be an expedition medic if you don't know how to be in that environment. So I really wanted to just do what I love and enjoy being outside. And I think the best way to improve your skill set is just to push yourself from your comfort zone and in a safe manner try and think, oh, you know what, I'm happy navigating in a big sunny day with clear sky. Why don't I try it in the snow? Why don't I try it when it's a bit more challenging? You know, why don't I try and learn this? So safely push yourself from your comfort zone. So the photograph of me looking very happy climbing, that was quite recently. So I know how to boulder, but I really wanted to be able to learn how to rope climb. So I befriended someone who was very good at rope climbing in North Wales. And I asked them to come with me and try to literally show me the ropes. So I really wanted to become better at climbing. And the rather strange photo in the top right of me and my partner looking like we're trying to hide from someone, that's in Scotland when we did a 6-day walking and camping trip. So we did a long distance route in Scotland, which was really tough, but I learned a lot about, you know, walking, navigating, camping, and also how many midges are around in Scotland. So I've got my midge net on to try and make sure that I don't get bitten by all the insects and the midges. My other tip would be consider any courses or programs to help improve your outdoor skills. I know these are quite pricey, but I think if you pick the right one and you're really committed, it can be quite useful to have a framework and a structure. So I'm doing a sort of like long-term course with Mountain Training, which is a UK program. to hopefully work towards getting my mountain leader qualification, which is essentially a qualification that shows you're competent in the mountains and competent at navigating. And it's probably going to take me a couple of years to complete, but that's something I really want to do, so that I can improve my ability to be in the mountains safely, and apply for any scholarships as well. So I've applied for quite a lot of scholarships. I used to just Google like outdoor scholarships. So I've applied for like diving ones and mountaineering ones, and hiking ones. But there was one that I was lucky enough to get, and that was the Jonathan Conville Memorial Trust, which is a programme in the UK, who, if you're successful in applying, they'll give you some reduced courses on mountaineering, and the idea is to get young people into mountaineering. So that photograph of us all walking in the snow was from a 2-day course that I had a reduced fee to go on in the Cairngorms in Scotland, where we did some navigating and some introduction to winter mountaineering, which was really awesome. The other thing that I did, which was incredible, was in the summer of my 4th year, I went and spent 10 days in Egypt in the Red Sea doing some diving. So I'd learnt to dive when I was traveling in Asia, and I absolutely loved it and just wanted to do more of it. So I went with a program called the Dive Medicine School, which is based in Dahab in Egypt, and it's medical students from all around the world. And they do a course where you can do a dive qualification, but we also had some lectures on diving medicine. And it was the most incredible 10 days. The Red Sea is so beautiful. So I did my advanced open water course, and I did a little bit of traveling in Egypt, and just had the most incredible time ever. So now diving is something I'm really interested to do more in, but unfortunately it's a very expensive hobby. So I haven't been able to do much recently at all, but that was something really, really special. So the other thing I'm going to touch on quickly, but not spend too much time on, is pre-hospital medicine. So obviously, expedition medicine is essentially medicine in a pre-hospital environment, so not in a hospital or in a health setting. So pre-hospital medicine is not sort of designed to be in these extreme environments, but it's those ambulance services that go out and help people. So this is another thing that I'm really, really interested in, and I want to tailor my career to. So I'm not going to talk about it loads, because I do have a lot of tips, and it would be a whole other topic. But it was really, really useful to get some experience in pre-hospital medicine, to sort of tailor my ability to sort of cope practicing medicine outside of a hospital. So inquire to your local ambulance trust about any roles that are going, any voluntary roles, any ride outs you could do with the ambulance service, trying to get some experience. It's really, really beneficial. I would absolutely recommend. In the UK, we have a scheme called the Community First Responder Scheme, where you can be a volunteer with the ambulance service. So I've been doing that for the last 3 years, which I've learnt a lot from, and that's been really, really great. And I was also lucky to have some time recently where I was able to work a bit more with the local ambulance service in Wales, and I just learned so much, so I'd really recommend. St John Ambulance is another programme in the UK, which I've not been involved in personally, but I've heard really great things from as well. And again, your university might have societies on sort of pre-hospital and emergency medicine that you can be involved in, and you can also be involved in teaching. So the photograph of the girl putting in an iGel airway was from some teaching course that I was doing as part of the society. The other 2 photographs on the right are from times when I was sort of volunteering as a casualty. So quite often when people are running simulations, they need people to be patients. So if you ever see an opportunity where your local ambulance trust or a course is looking for volunteer casualties, that's a really good way to learn a lot as well, and to sort of see yourself from the casualty point of view. So the top photograph is at a simulation training with the Welsh Ambulance Service, and the bottom one was from a wilderness medicine course for more senior doctors. You probably can't see my little face, but I'm underneath the storm shelter in the rain while someone does a primary survey on me. So I learned quite a lot doing that as well. So that would be my other tip. So now I want to get on to a bit more interesting experience. So I really wanted to get experience working on an expedition, but you can't go from nothing to being taken as an expedition medic to look after a host of people in a country you're not familiar with. So what I wanted to start with was doing some event medicine. So a lot of the time, you know, you need medics to cover events in case people become injured. So sports matches, film sets, ultra marathons, that sort of thing often need a medical team. So I contacted everyone I could think of, asking if I could be part of this, whether I could have some experience, either voluntary or paid, in these sort of jobs. So I was really lucky that I found two companies that were happy to employ me. So one was Cardiff based, and they covered football matches. So you can see me looking quite pleased with myself at one of the Cardiff City football matches. And they also covered film sets, which was super exciting. So the photograph where I look a bit like a construction worker with a colleague was from a day on a film set where they were filming for a BBC drama programme in a forest, and it was super exciting. They had special effects there, putting some flames out, and I learned quite a lot about sort of risk management, because there were quite a lot of hazards there for the people filming. You know, they were carrying big heavy cameras down these slippery muddy slopes, and I learned quite a lot about the sort of concept in expedition medicine of prevention's better than cure, and doing risk assessments. So I learned a lot from doing those jobs, and I covered a bit of construction work as well. And I was also really lucky because when I signed up with this company, not only did they pay me, but they also wanted me to go through a course. So they put me on a course called Sports Trauma Management, which was a 2-day course. So if you can get your foot in the door with one of these organisations, they will really treat you well. So it took me a long time to find anyone who would employ me, but when I did, it was definitely worth it. And the other company that I work part-time for is a company that covers ultramarathons and multi-day sports events in the UK. So I've done a couple of trips with them where I've been looking after the runners. So it's a lot of taping blisters, but we've also had some poorly people who become faint or unwell, vomiting, hypothermic after doing these events. So those other two pictures are from covering some of the ultramarathons. So my number one tips would be email everyone, because it is so worth it if you can get in with one of these companies. And I would say it's useful to contact both the provider and the event. So for example, you know, these film sets were, you know, covered by a company, but then you can also contact the event directly. So I really wanted to work at an ultramarathon. So I emailed the ultramarathon directly saying, you know, I really want to work with your medical team. Who's your provider? As well as emailing the provider, because sometimes people will ignore your email. So if you email both, it's the safest way to try and get through to someone. And unfortunately, it did work best when I went through contacts I made. So a lot of the time I would email people and say, you know, I'm really interested in doing this work. Can I do this work with you? And I would just be ignored. But a lot of the time, if I met someone who would say to me, oh, I work for this company, you should contact them. And I emailed them and I said, hi, I know Dr. blah, blah, blah. They've put me in contact with you. That was often when I got the reply. So sadly, if you make contacts and go through them, that's probably the best way to do it. And I've put here query qualifications because a lot of the time, the message that I got back from these event companies were, you're not qualified, you're only a medical student, like we can't employ you. So I was quite lucky in that I had my community first responder qualification. So I would use that quite a lot of the time and say, oh, I can be a first aider, I'm qualified to do this. But the problem with the community first responder is that it's only regional qualification. So it was all right in Wales, but in other, you know, places in England, or if it was a nationwide company, they would say, oh, well, that's not a nationwide qualification. So if you're really wanting to do a lot of these events, and they do pay fairly well if you can do it enough, it might be worth getting yourself a qualification such as the FREC 3 qualification. If you have any questions, just email me about it. I haven't done it, but it would certainly have helped me get my foot in the door a bit earlier. So apologies for the disgusting foot, it's not mine. I was really lucky that I was able to work one event abroad, and that was my trip to the Ardennes in Belgium to cover a 7-day ultramarathon where some absolutely crazy runners from around Europe were running 500 kilometers through snow where they had to self-navigate. I'm not sure why anyone would put themselves through it, especially when their feet turn out like this, which is essentially trench foot, and that photo is posted with consent. But I had an awesome time. I went with a medical team. I got on really well with them in our spare time. We went for lots of snowy walks and had some fun. We did a lot of blister taping, but we also had some really unwell patients with mild hypothermia. We had a lot with who were vomiting, a lot with mild electrolyte imbalances, or presumed electrolyte imbalances, a couple that we had to cannulate and get some IV fluids in. So I learnt a massive amount. This was an event that I volunteered on, and I did need to pay my own transport to get there. So that was the only thing with that event. And I just want to show you quickly the environment that they were running in. So this guy in red on the right, he was leaving the checkpoint to go off and like run another 100 kilometers or something. So it's absolutely mad. And these two women on the left were the first women to come in and finish. So most of the participants dropped out and didn't make it to the end, but these two absolute legends did. And I thought it was really nice because they'd never met before, and they were from 2 different countries in Europe. They didn't even speak the same language, but they decided to come in at the finish line, and they ran around holding hands so that they finished joint first. So I thought that was really, really cool. So I met some really cool people doing that job. So looking to the future, now that I've finished medical school, which sounds weird to say, so I wanted to think a little bit about how moving forward I could continue to build on this career path. So I had a good think about where I wanted to work, and I thought I want to work somewhere where I can improve my outdoor skills and where I can be around people who also have these interests, and I could try and make more contacts to get me more opportunities. So I decided to work in Ysbyty Gwynedd in Bangor in North Wales, mainly for the reason of the absolutely insane mountains and lakes, which you can see in this photo that I took there not that long ago. And also because they have a mountain medicine program where they do some research into injuries and issues in the mountains. And so I thought that this attracts a lot of outdoorsy people. I can improve my skills and I can make some contacts and hopefully do a bit of research in mountain medicine for my CV. I think the other thing to consider when you're moving forward is the specialties that you're going to go into. So I think a lot of the time expedition medics are often generalists, so general practice or emergency medicine, but that's not to say you can't do it from a different specialty. For example, Chris Imray is the vascular surgeon with the interest in altitude medicine. But I think particularly in your sort of first and second year of work, you probably want to get some experience in A&E. I think not many expedition medicine providers will take people who haven't had a job in the emergency department. And there are diplomas and courses out there, particularly in the UK. I know that there are some, for example, the Expedition Medicine Diploma run by the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh. And whilst a qualification on paper doesn't sort of qualify you to go and work in these extreme environments, it might help on your application. So I'm going to go up to Bangor shortly to start work. And there's a lot of people there who like outdoorsy things, as you can see in the bottom photograph of me looking very exhausted after a long. I'm just going to talk quickly about making contacts, because this was the main thing that has got me places where I wanted to be, was trying to make contacts. Because if you meet someone who does give you the time of day to help you out, it makes such a difference. So I'm going to give you an example of some contacts that worked out. I'm going to talk to you about some contacts that didn't work out. So in 2019, I went to the Student Wilderness Medicine conference, which was the conference I was talking about earlier in the talk. So I met a doctor called Dr. Braunecker, who was an anaesthetist who was really interested in dive medicine. And I spoke to him after his lecture and I said, oh, that was really cool. And, you know, it was the summer after I'd come back from Egypt diving. And I said, I really want to do more diving. And I really loved it. And, you know, how did you get into it? And he said to me, oh, I'm a dive instructor. And if you like, I'll give you half price to do your nitrox diving qualification, which is a qualification where you dive with a nitrox cylinder on your back rather than just normal air, and it helps you stay underwater for a bit longer, but you need a qualification to dive with it. So I said, oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. So he gave me a half price qualification, and it was an online course, and he helped me do the course and then he qualified me. So it was a really cool contact to make. And then a couple of months later, me and a friend wanted to do some research into pre-hospital medicine for our CV. And Dr. Braunecker used to work with the London Air Ambulance. So we contacted him and we said, you know, we're thinking about doing a systematic review. Do you know of any topics? And he said, absolutely, I'll be your supervisor. So he's helped us write up this, this piece of research, which we're hopefully going to have published soon. So from one conference and one conversation, I managed to find those opportunities. So it just really shows that sadly, when you know people, it does help you get your foot in the door a bit more. That being said, I wanted to talk about some contacts that didn't work out. So bear with me here. I used to send emails like this all the time. So I would spend so long sending these emails. I used to email every provider I could think about, and I would send them a little paragraph saying like, oh, I love emergency medicine. I really want to do this. You know, do you know how I can get involved? Do you know how I can do this? And inevitably I had no reply. And the other day I thought I would have a look through my emails for this talk and see how many of these happened. So I searched on my emails, you know, expedition medicine, and I had a look at how many people didn't reply to me. So this is all the emails that I found by typing in event medicine or expedition medicine of all the things that I've applied to, people that just didn't reply, opportunities that just didn't work out. And I'm not joking, there were so many. Oops. So this was like how many people I had to contact in order to get a few jobs. So like, don't be disheartened if this happens to you, because I think a lot of the time we see all these people that go and do things and we think, oh, wow, I really want to do that. And you're just hitting brick walls all the time. And honestly, I would spend months and months just hitting brick walls, not getting anywhere. So if you keep asking, you will get there eventually. And I just want to say that pretty much all of these emails were doubled by an email like this that I used to send about a month later. So I would send my initial paragraph with my CV saying, please, can I have some experience? They wouldn't reply. And then about a month later, I would say, hello, have you seen my email? Which would also be ignored. So I just want to say that, you know, sometimes it looks like people are getting opportunities easily, but it is hard to get your foot in the door. So please don't be disheartened if this happens to you. So just before we finish, I know I've been talking for a while. I just want to share a few more tips. Some of these that I've talked about before. So number one, sign up to conferences, not just the Student Wilderness Medicine conference, but any conferences. They're really useful and they're really accessible now because of COVID, and a lot of them are being done virtually, and you learn a lot, you make contacts and you hear about opportunities. So number one tip, sign up for lots of conferences. Number two, write up posters or give presentations if you can. It doesn't have to be something super exciting. Me and my friend once wrote up a poster about the simulations we were doing with the Wilderness Medicine Society. And pretty much all we said was, we're doing these simulations, this is what we did, the students liked them. And we managed to get it entered into a wilderness medicine conference and winning a prize. So it doesn't even have to be anything, you know, super exciting. Number three, keep an up-to-date CV and update it every time you do something, because you'll be surprised the little things that you do that could be useful for your CV. And if you don't update it, you'll forget about them. So every time you've been to a conference or done a presentation or done anything, just update it on your CV, and then it makes it really easy if you're going to send an email to someone, like those big emails I did saying, I'm really interested in wilderness medicine, I've done this and this. It makes it really easy if you can just pull up your CV and then just put down everything you've done. I don't know what it's like in other countries, but in the UK, you basically have to have a certificate for everything you do, or it doesn't count. So for your portfolio for applying for postgraduate training, if you say, I won a prize at this conference, you need to have a certificate that says, like, Lydia Potter given prize for this presentation, blah, blah, blah. So everything you do, make sure you get a certificate. And some people I've had to email back and forth to get a certificate. And it's a bit embarrassing, but once you've got hold of it, it will prove that you have done something. Always be on the lookout for opportunities. So often it was when I wasn't really paying attention, when I would be scrolling through Facebook and I'd suddenly see, looking for volunteers for this or looking for volunteers for that. So always be on the lookout. And you're more likely to see these sorts of things if you're following, organisations and individuals involved in expedition medicine on social media. So Twitter is quite good, and also on Facebook. I spoke about the Student Wilderness Medicine group, but there's other groups out there. And if you follow them, you're more likely to see, when they're doing conferences and when there are opportunities. This isn't a plug for myself on Twitter. If you're just wanting to find people, if you go onto my page and look at who I follow, there's just like so many expedition medics and organisations. So if you want a lazy way to find them all, just go onto my page and you can follow them all. Read around topics as well. If this is something you're interested in, improve your knowledge, and then you can impress people when you see them. So this book, I'm not sponsored by them. This is a really great book. It has everything on expedition and wilderness medicine. And just ask and ask and ask. So, if you meet someone who you think, wow, I really want to be able to do that, just ask them. So last weekend, I was working at ultramarathon with one of those companies I was talking about. And there was a doctor I hadn't met before who was working at the same rest stop as me. And he said that he'd done some expeditions in Nepal and Borneo. And I was saying, wow, how did you do that? Who did you get in contact with? What had you done? And I found out that he'd done it 2 years into being a doctor. And I asked him, how prepared he was, and asked him all these questions. So in a few years, when I'm as experienced as him, I will know how to do those things he was talking about. Take every opportunity you can, and if you make contacts, try and keep them. So if you meet someone who's really lovely and they've got similar interests to you, and you email them and say, let me know if there's any opportunities, and they say, oh, I don't have any at the moment, email again in 6 months or a year, and try and keep up those contacts, because like with Dr. Braunicke, you don't really know when someone is going to be able to help you out. Don't give up if you're hitting loads of brick walls, because I know how frustrating it is. And just go adventuring and have fun. If this is something you're really interested in, you can't really go wrong just getting outdoors, improving your skills. And I'm just going to quickly mention tips from some wiser people, tips from some people who've actually been on expeditions. So a bit boring, but make sure that if you're going on an expedition, you've got sufficient indemnity. So make sure that you're covered legally if you're going to be providing medical care. So all of the jobs, the event medical jobs I've been to, I've been really, really careful about making sure that I'm covered by the company, and really careful about what I'm expected to do and what I'm not expected to do. So for example, some of the events I've worked at, I'm expected to be able to give over-the-counter medications such as paracetamol, ibuprofen, cetirizine, things like that. And I'm really careful, and I say, look, I'm not a doctor, I can't prescribe, and how do you want me to give them? And most of the time they've said, it's only over-the-counter medication. You can give it if people ask for them, but you're not prescribing it to them. And I make sure that I really understand, what's expected for me, and that they know that, I can't, they know my limitations. And certainly if I was going to do an expedition where I was going abroad and I was the only medic there, I would make sure that my indemnity was happy to cover me. And choose your providers really carefully. So I've been told that if you take an expedition medicine job, make sure that your provider that's employing you is legitimate, that their kit is up to date and in date, that they're sufficiently covered that you're not going to be liable if something happens, that there's sufficient top cover, good standard operating procedures, that sort of thing. I've also been told beware of paying to work, because there's a lot of companies out there that will say, yes, you can come and be an expedition medic with us if you pay your own flights and you pay us £1,000. So it depends how senior you are, and that's a decision that you need to make, but there are places that will pay you to work. So I've been told beware of paying to work. And as I mentioned before, the thing that other expedition medics have told me is just know your limits and be comfortable in your environment. So don't sign up to go and work in a polar environment if you've never been in a polar environment and you don't have any kit that will keep you warm. I wouldn't sign up to go and work in a jungle because I've never really been in a proper jungle for a long period of time. I would probably get loads of insect bites, get really hot. I wouldn't have the right kit. Make sure you're comfortable in an environment before you're going there to provide care, because you're not only expected to look after yourself, you're expected to look after other people as well. And if you are going to do any courses, because there's a lot out there, from courses like Desert Medicine School in Namibia to a local 2-day course close to home in the UK, if you're from the UK, choose it really carefully because some are better than others and they're all quite expensive. So the picture on the right is from a course I did recently with a company called Unique Expeditions, and it was absolutely amazing. I learned loads. It was definitely worth the price. It was really reasonably priced, but there are some out there that are quite expensive. So that is me done. I know I've talked for a really long time, and thank you so much for bearing with me. I'm really grateful. I'm not really one for inspirational quotes, but this one really stuck with me. So if you can't stop thinking about it, don't stop working for it. So if this is something that, you're really, really interested in, you can do it. And even if you keep hitting brick walls, you will get there in the end. And this photograph is from Conwy in North Wales, which is where I'm moving up to. And I put my details at the bottom. If anyone wants to contact me, feel free to get in touch if you have any questions. So I will open up the group chat. Oh no, there's some messages on there already, sorry. If anyone has any questions, pop them on the chat. If you want to have a chat in person, pop your video on and have a chat. Happy to answer any questions from anyone. Let me just read the chat. Got a message from Amanda. Besides the difficulties of getting into those experiences because of contacts, what other challenges are there in expedition medicine? Yeah, so I think this talk's kind of focused on like getting your foot in the door, hasn't it? But I think this is why I think it'd be great for Phoenix Med if you can get someone a bit more senior who's done some like proper big expeditions to talk to you guys. I think the challenges are preparing for an expedition, so making sure that you've got the correct kit, making sure like medical kit and also personal kit. So I think you worry about clients that don't have sufficient clothing, they don't have sufficient food, they don't know how to look after themselves in certain environments. So I think you've got to be really careful with prevention medicine. So risk assessing, like you don't want to cross a frozen lake if everyone's then going to fall in. Like there's no point in knowing how to treat hypothermia if like it's better to just not need to. So I think that's something that I find really interesting. So you have to really focus on like prevention of problems and making sure that everyone's safe and making sure you don't get lost. So it really depends on the environment. So for example, I'm probably like most familiar with like UK mountains as an environment. So if I was up on the mountains in North Wales and someone said, make sure that everyone's safe and look after them from a medical capacity, I'd be thinking, have you got the right footwear? Are you going to trip? Are you going too near the edge? Have you got enough food? So there's lots of things to think about. I think it is a really challenging environment to work in. But yeah, thanks for your question, Amanda. I got a message from Luke saying, well done, thank you. And then Max, when you graduated from med school, what specialty did you go for? And how long after did you join the WEM, or did you join during the studies? So there's a few questions. when you graduated from med school, so I've only just graduated now, what specialty did you go for? So in the UK, you don't go straight into a specialty. You do 2 years of postgraduate training where you switch around a load of different specialties. I wanted to work in Bangor in North Wales, and that was my priority over the sort of jobs that were there. But my first year is going to be haematology, oncology, then endocrine, which is just like a general medical job, and then general surgery. So hopefully my first year as a doctor will be like super, super general. And then in my year after, I'm hoping to get a rotation that includes A&E, so emergency medicine, and either intensive care or anaesthetics. And that's probably more to sort of foster my interest in pre-hospital medicine. I think it would probably be quite useful to do a block in general practice if you're interested in expedition medicine, because a lot of people have like general practicey problems like eye infections, ear infections, while they're on expeditions, but that's not something personally that I will probably do. How long after did you join WEM? I presume you mean the Student Wilderness Medicine Society. So I was in that for like my whole time at medical school. If you mean World Extreme Medicine, which is that company that provides courses, I'm not a part of that. Ben, great talk, thank you very much. And then a message from Priya, hi, thank you so much. Wondering, when does the wild trial competition occur? How can you be part of it? So it happens every year, and it normally happens, I think, in about February, but it got cancelled last year because of COVID, and I presume that it might not take part next year, but it happens in a different part of the UK each time, so it's hosted by different universities. So Cardiff WEMS Society, we hosted it the year prior to COVID. I think of all my time in terms of like when it was in relation to COVID, which is a bit depressing. So I was in 4th year at the time. So we hosted it then, and that was in South Wales. And it depends like which uni is hosting it, but you go in like teams, and I think the best way to be part of it is to go with your university. So all the university wilderness medicine societies go. So if you want to be part of it and you're at Cardiff University, if you get in touch with the Cardiff Wilderness Medicine Society and just say to them like, are you going to wild trials, like can I come? That's the best way to do it. And is there any diving courses you can do in the UK? Yes, there are. It's just very, very cold. So you can dive in the UK, absolutely. The problems are the visibility is pretty crap. And like for some people, the marine wildlife isn't quite as good. So in Egypt, it was amazing because I saw like octopus and sea snakes and like rays. Oh, it was incredible. In the UK, it's a bit different. I have done a dive course in the UK. So I did something called my rescue diver course in the UK. And I did it at a lake near Heathrow, which was a bit grim. It is still quite expensive because you have to rent the kit. But yeah, you absolutely can do courses in the UK. The only thing you have to be careful of is just that like it's really cold. So sometimes you need to have like a dry suit instead of a wet suit. The best thing to do probably is to go on to like if you just Google like UK diving qualifications, so qualifications from different like governing bodies. So there's one called PADI, which is like the American dive company. So that's who I did my courses through. And then there are other dive companies as dive courses as well. So I did one of my courses through a company called TDI, which was like a different sort of governing body. And that was the one I did with Dr. Braunecker because he was a part of them. So if you type in like PADI dive courses UK, I think PADI's quite a good one. It's PADI. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Rauha. Thank you so much. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, thank you very much. That's really kind. Oh, thank you. That's a lovely message. And then one from Kate. Good luck with F1. Thank you very much. I'm nervous, but hopefully it'll be good. And then one from Omar. Thank you. Oh, lovely. Thanks so much, guys. Any other questions, or are you guys happy? Feel free to, email or anything if you have any other questions. Thanks, Luke.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just want to extend a massive thank you once again for joining us today. Yeah, it's been a fantastic talk. I'm actually been feeling quite like restless now, like just really excited to like go out and do things. I'm going to be smashing my keyboard tomorrow, sending out loads of those emails and updating my CV. And thank you so much for the inspiration, Lydia. It's been brilliant.
Oh, thanks.
Um, if I could just be cheeky and ask one final question,
Absolutely.
now that I've got a nice long summer, is there one place in the UK you would recommend going for like a small camping trip? Maybe like camping hiking trips, like 3 days or so.
So, in case you didn't tell, I'm like a massive fan of North Wales.
Mm.
So I would definitely say go to North Wales. But as a Cardiff student, Nathan, probably like Scotland would be cool. So I went to the Cairngorms for that Jonathan Conville Memorial Trust course, and that was in the winter. But yeah, the Cairngorms are like mega, like massive, massive mountains. They're lovely. They're quite a way away. I did really enjoy the West Highland Way, which was in Scotland as well. I think the Lake District's pretty impressive. Yeah, especially if you're going to North Wales, you might have a placement block there if you're a Cardiff student. So,
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I love seeing the pictures of Brecon. I'm really excited to go visit North Wales. I haven't been
yeah,
yet, but
so good.
it looks
Welcome
brilliant.
anytime.
Oh, thank you. Just noticed we've got one last question from Anthony. I don't know if you can see it, but do you wish to become a full-time expedition doctor, or do you want us to do some in-hospital patient care as well?
So I'm just opening the chat so I can have a look. So it's not really possible to be a full-time expedition doctor, I don't think. You'd have to have like back-to-back expeditions. I think there are some doctors in the UK who do like a lot of trips and they do a lot of cover for different expeditions, but I think you'd just have like a completely manic lifestyle because you'd be pretty nomadic and you'd be like living between lots of different places. So I think I'll just like take things as it goes, but I think what I'd quite like to do would be to start specializing in emergency medicine and like maybe sign up for like a less than full-time training program so that I have like more time off to maybe do trips. But it will depend on like how much experience I get, and also how many commitments I have in the UK, like with like family and my partner and stuff. And yeah, I do want to do in hospital care, and you have to do in hospital care. Like no one's going to employ you as an expedition doctor if you're sort of like, oh yeah, I just like live out of my car and just go on like random trips around the world. So I think you do have to like keep your skill set up to date, because if you're not looking after people in like a structured environment, you're gonna like lose the sort of skill set. So hopefully I'll end up like basically like working in. The dream is like to sort of like work part-time in A&E, do a bit of like pre-hospital medicine, and be able to take time off to go on cool trips. Our message from TJ: do you have to be a tech diver to work on diving trips? No. So it depends. Again, it depends on the provider of the trip, and so you want to be careful because diving is quite complicated. And like physiologically it's quite complicated, like what your body does when you're underwater. So you want to have enough experience to treat that, basically. So it obviously helps if you're quite an experienced diver yourself, but you don't have to be a tech diver, because tech divers are like super specialized. I'm not an expert on like either diving or dive medicine. I've only done I think like 19 logs dives and a couple of courses. But no, I know there's a doctor called Nathan Hudson Peacock who does loads of expedition stuff, and he's like a middle grade A&E doctor. He's really awesome, and he's on Instagram if you want to follow him. He's great, and he is currently working as a diving doctor in Indonesia, and I think he's done like something like maybe like 30 or 40 dives, and they've basically said to him, if you come out and you work as a doctor for this dive expedition, we'll like pay for you to do your dive master qualification, which is like the top PADI qualification. So I don't think he's definitely not a tech diver, but I think he's done a few like UK dive medicine courses, and he's like qualified up to like rescue diver level, I think. I hope that helps somewhat. Cool. Oh, sorry, that was a direct message to me, so I don't think anyone else would have seen that message come up.
That's brilliant. Thank you. So anyone got any last minute questions? But if not, I think we'll just do a quick wrap up. So just kind of end with like a quick plug for Phoenix Med. So for those who like joined us a little bit late or anything, Phoenix Med is a collaboration between medical students and doctors from University of Namibia, Zambia, and Cardiff University. We host monthly social and educational events online. Hope to maybe move into possibly some in the future in person. With COVID restrictions easing up. But please do keep in touch with all our social media, Facebook, Instagram, maybe on Eventbrite as well. But we really keep trying to grow our community and meet new people. And it's been great to see some new faces today. So thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you again to our fantastic speaker, Dr. Lydia Potter. It's been brilliant talking to you today. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm just excited now to go out and start doing things. Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, good luck with it all. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you. So if anyone's got anything to add, I think we'll call it a day. But thank you.